the darkness, stare down deceit. Murder in the headlines, justice in the beat. From cold case whispers to killers in disguise, we rip off the mask, expose all the lies. Facts like bullets we load and deliver. Truth cuts deep like a blade in a river. Corruption shakes when the mic goes live. We dig where others won't survive. Games rolling through the smoke. Truth hits hard, no time for a joke. Deceit, murder, we name every name. No restraint, no shame, just flame. Locked on the case, we investigate.
This is 12 Gauge Investigative. Let's jump in.
12 Gauge Investigate. We make them bleed. No games, no censors, just truth. Justice is loud, and we're the sound. This is 12 Gauge Investigative.
All right, all right, all right. Justice is loud and we're the sound. How's everybody doing tonight? My name is 12 Gauge and this is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. I hope you guys are doing okay. I thought I'd get on here and go over the document that everybody keeps hollering about. See what's going on. I know I'm a little late, but you know, better late than never, right? So, how's y'all's Thursday going? I hope y'all having an awesome Thursday. One more day to the weekend. We finally got some rain here in Texas. Got about a 30-minute shower. Flooded the roads. All kinds of runoff. So, it's always a great day when that happens. Let me fix this camera angle. I don't know why it went full screen. That's just crazy. I don't like that. I need to make it smaller. Oh well, that'll work, I guess. Anyway, so what y'all up to? Talk to me. Let me mess with this for a minute. Okay, that's a little better. Let me fix this. Since we're not gonna probably have anybody on panel tonight, let me get rid of that one. Yeah, we'll do this. Hey Delby, how you doing, buddy? PKC, how's it going? I hope that you enjoyed your birthday. It's always nice to have a birthday and be able to spend it with family and going out to eat and stuff. Always great. Let me go ahead and pull this up. And anybody that's in here that's not in the chat, thank you for being here. Good grief, that is small. I don't know if I like this. They need more room on this platform. Maybe that's better right there. I'll put myself in the corner. Hey Texas, how's it going, buddy? Randy Potter. You went out and took a shower today. That's cool. Well, you know, I've been hearing little bits and pieces of this, and you know how it's the Dateline, you know, stuff's gonna cause a continuance or this or that and the other, or it's even gonna cause the whole thing to go a little haywire. We don't really know that for a fact. I mean, it's kind of, it's annoying a little bit when people get all up in their feels and they start repeating stuff that they don't know anything about. But it's cool. Let's see what the damn documents got to say. I mean, I know people were up in their feels about it. The argument is this court has an obligation to uphold Mr. Koberger's constitutional rights by vacating the trial date because the defense counsel needs additional time to review discovery and prepare for the complex merits and sentencing phase unique to death penalty cases. So let me ask you, chat. You remember way back when the discovery motions were being put out there, discovery motion number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way to 21 or something, I guess it got to. So remember when they had a deadline to have all that discovery in there? Well, what has Ann Taylor been doing with this time frame? What's she been doing? That's what I want to know. What's she been doing? You know what's pretty cool is you can go full screen on this and I can still see y'all's chat. Maybe that's what I need to do, is just go full screen and be able to see y'all's chat. I'll try to do the old school thing. So I ask you guys, what has Ann Taylor been doing all this time? Can y'all answer me that? I know that she's taking on another death penalty case, but do you believe that she's actually been utilizing her time effectively, trying to get all this stuff, or do you think she's been putting more energy in trying to stall than actually understanding the evidence or the paperwork? What do y'all think? What up, Leslie and Billy? PKC. She is too busy focusing on the death penalty instead of the trial. Haven't they been asking for continuances from jump? Yes. Um, I don't know what she's been doing. I mean, because as we were told, and I don't know how true this is, but she likes to do her own type stuff. So it's like people were saying, well, why didn't she get like paralegals and stuff to go through all that? Generally, that's what people do, right? They get assistants, paralegals to help them out, and obviously she hasn't done that. This court has an obligation to enforce the constitutional rights of all persons, including prisoners. Brown versus Plata. And we also see Raw versus Conley. Upon the state courts, equally with the courts of the Union, rests the obligation to guard, enforce, and protect every right granted to secured by the Constitution of the United States and the laws made in pursuant thereof. You know, I don't have any problems with people having rights and, the constitutional foundation that our forefathers had so many years ago. Hey, we all need them. We all live by them. My problem is when you tried to stall, and this isn't the only case that I've heard of. The one that I was going to do tonight was out of Texas, and this individual spent 14 years on death row, and he finally exhausted all his appeals, and he was still trying to get his death penalty turned over to a life sentence, and the governor did not go for it, and they ultimately executed him. And I think that's going to be an interesting story. I think you all like that, but I didn't feel like doing that tonight. I felt like talking about this a little bit. So y'all tell me what you think about her wanting more time. Give me your thoughts, chat. I want to know what y'all are thinking about that. While I read, as detailed in this motion, moving forward with the capital trial in August will infringe upon Mr. Koberger's constitutional rights, as counsel requires more time to review discovery, complete investigations, and prepare for the trial. When considering this request for a continuance, the court must weigh the issues against the heightened need for reliability in death penalty cases. See Woodson versus North Carolina. This elevated standard is essential because the execution is the most irreversible and profound penalty indeed. Death is different. Ford versus Wainwright, 1986. When the state seeks the death penalty, it imposes an extraordinary burden upon the court itself, the defense counsel, to ensure the fairness, accuracy, and reliability of the trial and any subsequent sentencing proceeding. With the defendant's life stake, the trial court must be particularly sensitive to ensure that every safeguard is observed. Gregg versus Georgia. I'm reading this, but it sounds like, okay, we get it. We've gotten it since day one, since, they were setting up from the grand jury all the way from the indictment. We've heard, we want a fair trial. We want a fair trial. This man can't get a fair trial in Latah County. We got to move. We got to move. We got to move. Can't do this here. Can't do that here. Blah, blah, blah. We got to move. Guess what? They moved. And then they got a new judge. And then they kept stalling and kept throwing stuff. Well, this is not going to work. Mr. Koberger has this personality defect. He has this. We can't use the word murder. We can't use the word bushy eyebrows. We can't do this. We can't do that. Okay, so it seems to me like this is just her strategy. And I'm kind of curious. PKC, I don't know if you've been following the other death penalty case she's on, but can you attest to if she is doing the same thing with Mr. I guess his name is Mead? Can you attest to that, or is she taking a different stance on that case? Because if she's doing the same thing over there, then that's just her strategy. That's all she knows. I hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't fold. I really do. What do you do when your client looks guilty as hell? Drag it out? Good question. 12 gauge. I heard same way. It's like, what is she doing with that client? Because if she's doing the same thing, then that's just her strategy. It's not anything different. So yes, very similar. Most death penalty challenges were the same. Okay. Yeah, so maybe that's just her strategy. Bill Thompson broke discovery deadline rules to hinder BK. Bill knows BK will outsmart him if everyone plays by the rules. Okay, well, I don't know if he did or not, but that's interesting to know. So, what I'm saying with this is if her MO is to stall, delay, stall, do I agree with the Dateline stuff? I mean, after I got to thinking about it, the more that I thought about it, and the more that's been leaked, and the way I heard it the other day, it really doesn't seem like Dateline leaked anything other than stuff, maybe the text messages, the photos, maybe the search history. But we had been told about the Amazon stuff. We had been told about the sheath. We had been told about the pool party. We had been told about, him supposedly meeting people there. We had been told about, the 23 times. We had been told about, all that stuff. We had been told about the Asian woman. We didn't know her name, or at least I didn't, but we've been told about that stuff. So I don't really know if anything that was leaked was anything that was of relevance, especially if they're not going to use any of it in court. You know what I mean? Mountain Mama, how you doing? She said, I think she's going to try and use this to get the death penalty off the table, but the trial to go on as planned. That's a good thought. That's a good thought. We got to hear the 911 call, of course. Her previous case was very similar. County finally agreed to a plea because it was taking too much time and costing too much money. I agree that that's probably the route that they're wanting to take. Dateline didn't really give us that much new stuff. I don't think they did. I mean, maybe we were shown those selfies, but how incriminating were they? If you're going to really, I mean, we saw the one of him standing in the bathroom. So what's the difference between that selfie and the selfie in the hoods? The hood, the hoodie with it pulled up or whatever, or him, all that other stuff. I mean, it's not really incriminating unless he would have had the K-bar holding it up. I mean, then it would have been, okay, we didn't know about this. The one part that I really thought that, anything was shown with the white Elantra passes, the camera footage. That's something nobody's ever seen. And we didn't even see that, any part of that, until, the document dropped where they showed the still frame of the Elantra going by the 1112. And it wasn't until then that we actually knew anything. Hell, we didn't know about the Ridge Road camera. We had thought, but we didn't know that there was actual, you know, screenshot or, still shot of the Elantra going by Ridge Road, which is a camera that was in color, not a black and white. It was in color. So, those are the things that I would believe that are more important than some of the Dateline crap that they're talking about. Should people be held accountable if they did leak stuff? Of course, they really should. I mean, I'm just sick of this trial. I'm just sick of this process already. I really am. I mean, and I can see part of the reason that they would be willing to drag this out is because the longer you drag something out, you're hoping that somebody forgets something. You get them on the stand and you can say, well, that's not what you said. Anything to cause reasonable doubt. Justice O'Connor's concurrence in Thompson versus Oklahoma reinforces the idea that trial courts must apply heightened scrutiny to decisions potentially leading to a death sentence. Among the most important and consistent themes in the court death penalty jury's prudence is the need for special care and deliberation in decisions that may lead to the imposition of the death penalty. The Idaho Supreme Court, too, has emphasized the special safeguards and stringent due process protections that must be afforded in capital cases. Good grief. Um, so that's the argument, pretty much. Is we want some more time because this is a death penalty case, and you're just not giving us enough time. Well, here's the second part of my question from earlier. Do you believe that Judge Hippler is going to bend and grant them more time? The previous case, she also tried to get the judge excused because they were elected. Oh. Also pushed for COV but didn't get it. It seems like that is her MO, is to make it sound like everything and everybody is not doing their job concerning investigative tactics, the judge's bias and prejudice, things like that. It says because proceeding to a capital trial prematurely is a decision that may lead to erroneous imposition of the ultimate sanction, this court must consider and assess this motion under a heightened standard of due process. Mr. Koberger has myriad constitutional rights during the proceedings, all of which are dependent on counsel having the time and resources to prepare for a capital trial in accordance with established professional norms. In capital cases, the rights of effective assistance of counsel and the complete defense are amplified. Also, I believe that she's preparing for the appeal. I really do. I believe that should he be found guilty and sentenced to death, I believe that all this stuff that she's doing right now and has done and the judge went against, I believe that she's going to use that as a way to appeal the death penalty and possibly look for getting him a life sentence. Because at this point, it looks like she's just trying to, not get the death penalty. It doesn't seem like she's trying to get him off. It seems like she just wants the death penalty off the table. So if I get the death penalty off the table, I've won, so to speak. He'll get a life sentence. Because, you know, that could be her motive. Because it just too weird to be pushing all this. I mean, I understand you got to do what you got to do for your client, but at a particular point, let the ball roll. Let the case get going. Because by this point, we were told that last hearing was the last little bit, kind of like the dress rehearsal before the prom. You know, we got everything squared away. I told you what I expect. I told you what's going to happen. This is where the evidence is going to go. This is where the model house is going to be stored, blah, blah, blah. I've told you all this stuff. Now let's get on with the prom. And then all of a sudden, Dateline takes the initiative to drop that episode. And also, I was totally unaware and I totally forgot about James Patterson's book. I mean, we live in a country where we have a lot of rights. We have a right for free speech. We have a right to be able to write a book if we want. We have the right to be able to drop the book if we want right before the trial. Why wouldn't they drop it right before the trial? Everybody's going to want to pick up that book and read it, of course, right? Moneymaker. Dateline is no different. Wouldn't this make Hitler angry for deliberate delay? Especially after they said, this is kind of like the last little hearing before the big day. And here we're having to get a special prosecutor, a special investigative team to try to find a leak. What in the hell is going on at this point? It's almost like, okay, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. What do y'all think, chat? Do you think this is deliberate? Do you think this is something that, that was planned as part of the MO? Or do you think that this is just due to the Dateline, due to her being incompetent? 80s kid, nice to see you. I've seen you in comment. Thank you for being here. He says BK won't outsmart anybody. And that's true. I mean, if he's running the show, I mean, that's basically his MO is I'm gonna stall. Now let's talk about the Sixth Amendment. The Sixth Amendment entitled Mr. Koberger to the effective assistance of counsel at both the merits and penalty phases of this capital case. So she keeps talking about the penalty phase. It's like I want to make sure that by the time we get to the penalty phase, I want you to know that if you have done anything that I view as being prejudicial or biased or any way implicating corruption of any sort, which she should, I'm going to hold you to the fire. But I doubt, there's so many eyes on this case. I don't see how anything could be going and be exposed as this is deliberate. Additionally, and concomitantly, as part of the Sixth Amendment guarantee, as well as his right to due process is protected by the 14th Amendment, Mr. Koberger is entitled to a sufficient amount of time to allow counsel to adequately prepare the trial and sentencing. If you guys remember on the last document that we read, he was complaining that there was not a fairness in the state versus the defense ability to decipher the terabytes. Y'all remember that? When I read that, he was saying the state had a program that it was able to categorize and, put all information together, while the defense had to do it the old fashioned way. And when the state would hand over evidence as part of discovery, it wasn't categorized. It wasn't Brady material wasn't put to the front or where they could find it. They were having to do their own stuff. And this is still, they're pushing for this as being unfair. Y'all are being unfair because y'all aren't handing us all the important stuff that we could use. We got to go look for it, and we just don't have the time. I think it is just another excuse. There were no issues about previous Dateline, 48 Hours, Bloom Book, other Idaho books, but now that the trial is so close, everything is a problem, causing a need for delay. I agree. I totally agree. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I had to step away from the camera for a minute. It was getting cold in here. So let me continue on. And he is entitled for protective 14th, 6th Amendment, all that stuff. He really is. I mean, anybody that is facing a trial, we all have rights, of course. But he's making it sound like this is intentional by the state. It's where his counsel is failing to take the initiative to do what she needs to do. I mean, she got another person on board, kicked the dude off, got another person on board, and what has she been doing? Is she even an attorney? All she's going to do is testify about the DNA stuff. I mean, has she been helping out? So I don't know. It's just wild to me. It says Powell's made it clear that in order to preserve the accused's right to a fair trial and to effective and substantial assistance of counsel at the trial, the Sixth Amendment guarantee necessarily encompasses a reasonable period of time before trial during which counsel might prepare the defense. The Supreme Court has recognized that depriving a person of counsel during this period prior to trial may be more damaging than denial of counsel during the trial itself. So, how has this man been failed in this regard. He had the counsel. He has Taylor. He has Massoff. And he had that other dude. I can't think of his name. What was his name, chat? Was it Logston? Something like that? You know, he had all three of them. Mountain Mama says, I think they should cut Ann's salary in half and see how fast you want the trial to happen. She'd make him bank on this case. Well, I totally agree with you. She's been making a lot of money on this case, and you're right. So, is it really? I mean, you can argue the fact that you feel that you don't have enough people on your staff and you feel unfair toward the state able to. And that's the thing. The state has seen the same amount of evidence that you're having to go through. They have everything in order. They're not asking for a continuance. They're not asking for more counsel. They're not asking for anything that you're asking for. When court, when these hearings show, they're not asking for more time. They're not saying, "Hey, judge, we need more time." I mean, in essence, it's not the state's job to make it equal playing field for you. I mean, that's why you became a defense lawyer, because you knew there was not equal footing. You should have known that it would take more time to catch up to the level of the state unless, you had a hell of a team on your side. I mean, she should have known she was in over her head, and like the judge said, she shouldn't have taken on a second death penalty case if she was so overwhelmed. In a capital case, counsel must meet specific professional obligations to be constitutionally effective. The ABA guidelines outline the professional expectations and obligations for counsel in death penalty cases. These guidelines are not merely aspirational, they represent the current consensus on what is necessary for effective representation in capital cases. The Supreme Court has consistently referred to the ABA guidelines to determine the prevailing professional norm for counsel's performance. For example, in Wiggins versus Smith, the court explained that the ABA guidelines for capital defense serve as guides to determining what is reasonable and represent well-defined norms. Similarly, in Rapilla versus Beard, the court emphasized that it is the lawyer's duty to conduct a thorough investigation of the case's circumstances and explore all avenues leading to facts relevant to the case merits and the penalty if convicted, citing the ABA standards for criminal justice. So I understand that, she's trying to get her client the best representation she can. But she keeps throwing stuff out there, the alternative suspects. These investigations should have been done after the first year. But no, we were just over there in Latah County messing around, as I view it. One little hearing after another, where nothing was really done, in my opinion, because this is how it should have been running over there. Had it been running over there like it's ran here, even if there would have been a change of venue, we'd be way further down the line. But no, there was a gag order put in place. There was all this stuff of secrecy and all this stuff. And for what? So that we can just argue every hearing, every little motion to try to prolong a death penalty case. After a particular point, you have to know whether your client's guilty or not, I would believe. And I know she stood up there and said, my client is innocent and blah, blah, blah. I've heard her say it. Hey, Sirius, thank you for being here. I've heard her say it, and I know you have as well. But after a particular point, you got to ask yourself, do you really believe that, Anne? Or have you just not got to that part of the evidence yet? Have you not gotten to that part of the box? Are you just in the 25% of the box? You haven't gotten to the meat and potatoes of it, so it's easy to say my client's innocent because you haven't seen the implicating evidence on him. Hell, I'd say he was innocent too if I hadn't gotten to that part of the box yet. You know? Because it seems like either you don't take the time to do what you need to do, or you just are hoping that you can stall this out as long as possible. And for whatever reason, you can win an appeal on the appeals avenue. Here we go. The Ninth Circuit, which would review any death sentence arising out of Idaho state courts, has also repeatedly relied on the ABA guidelines and expressively recognized the guidelines as a proper measure of the adequacy of an attorney's investigation. American Bar Association standards and the like are evidence of these norms and guide to determining what is reasonable. Internal quotations omitted. The Ninth Circuit is not an anomaly. More than 700 capital case opinions cite the ABA guidelines. See American Bar Association Death Penalty Representation Project, list of opinions citing the ABA guidelines for capital defense. In addition to the effective assistance of counsel, Mr. Kohberger has the right to a meaningful opportunity to present a complete defense. Of course he does. Every defendant has that right. Noting the existence of a fundamental constitutional right to a fair opportunity to present a defense. Well, at this point, it's your job to have a defense already in the works. It really is. What do you think, chat? Help me out a little bit, because I don't want to be the only one that sounds like I'm being hard on Miss Taylor, but what do y'all think? You think she's had enough time to have a proper defense put out there? I mean, what do you think she's done? Let's see what Texas got to say. I'm going to go ahead and say it, but the folks that have these theories and ideas claiming he's not the guy are fools. I don't think she thinks he's innocent now. I totally agree. Well, I believe like y'all do, you know. But at this point, it's really, not to that part whether innocence or guilt. It would be about, well, how the hell am I going to defend against this, Brian? They're still like running around or running away from the alibi. We don't hear shit about the alibi anymore. You ever notice? Anytime the judge says, okay, I need an alibi by this point, then we get 100-page fucking document dropped. Excuse my language. But you get 100-page document dropped that kind of takes the focus off the alibi. You get what I'm saying? It's like every important piece that he should have had by now, we've just danced around the truth for this amount of time, and it still hasn't happened. Even after all this time, I heard today that the 4 weren't even killed in the house. Yeah, they said that a long time ago. They're supposedly killed in the tunnels or out on Linda Lane. I've seen many criminals act the same way this guy is doing. Alternate perpetrator took over for the alibi. Exactly. They have gone back to the tunnels. Yeah. But yet people get mad whenever you start talking about this guy. I feel like there are two different cases concerning Brian. I see where you would feel that way, but I believe that the people who are on that other side, and I really don't care what they think half the time anymore, but a lot of it is just lunacy. Their minds have gone to a place where they feel safe to say what they say. And, more power to them. Doesn't make it true. And no matter what they say or how they scream into the mic, it's not going to make it any more true than what this paper says. This paper has more merit and more accountability in this court than what a YouTuber has to say. You know what I mean? It says, under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, criminal prosecution must comport with the prevailing notions of fundamental fairness. Well, we've been hearing that forever. We want to do this once. You remember that? We don't want to do it again. We want to do it once. We want to get it right. We want to do this. We want to do that. Okay. Well, it seems like doing it right had just been like, okay, it's going to take us 20 years to try this damn case because we don't want to mess up. Come on, man. Come on. Like somebody was saying, I don't know if it was PKC or somebody, but they're saying her other death penalty case is coming up in January. That damn case is almost going to be tried faster than this case. So what that tell you? You know? What that tell you? I'd feel sorry for that dude. This guy right here, he knows he's either guilty or he's not. And the more he stalls, the longer you have to live on this earth without having to be, you know, in a prison 24/7. Hell, I'd want to stall too if I was in county, but as I've heard, many people don't like county. They want to hurry up and get it going and go to prison. Got more rights, more ability to move around, you know? I believe so. I believe it is a death penalty case as well, you know? So it says it says under the due process clause of the 14th Amendment, criminal prosecutors must comport with the prevailing notions of fundamental fairness. We have long interpreted the standard of fairness to require that criminal defendants be afforded a meaningful opportunity to present a complete defense. Okay, so at what point are you going to start presenting one? This right has a number of sources, including the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Then stick to the Constitution instead of trying to bend it and find a loophole in it, as well as the compulsory process and confrontation clauses of the Sixth Amendment. This right takes on special significance in capital cases. The right to present a meaningful defense must take precedence over any countervailing state evidentiary rules or other procedures that might be acceptable in the context of non-capital criminal cases. We get that. We've gotten that. You pounded that into our head. This is a death penalty case. This is a capital case. This is a capital case. Okay, we get it. What is the world doing to this man that he is not able to get a fair trial? The mainstream media is not all over this case, only when something like the Dateline thing goes on, or, every other week, probably you might hear one report. I mean, I don't know about the local news because I don't watch TV like that, but I'll almost guarantee that my local news does not say anything about Idaho unless, it is after a court or before a court hearing. And that might be the total of it all. So to sit there and say that there's so many people invested in this case and he has no ability to have a fair trial. I hate to say it, but that's bullshit. And you know it. You know where all the confusion and all the drama is on YouTube. So if people watch YouTube, that's where they're going to get their biases from. And if you can't find jurors because people watch YouTube and they've already picked the sides. And, hey, that's on y'all. You should have just ungagged it and let everybody see whatever they were going to see instead of treating us like children and gagging everything and sealing everything, all in the name of a fair trial. I understand that the man was on the run and you haven't found him and all this stuff, and you had all this evidence. I get that. But once you find him, you should have ungagged it. You should have ungagged it. You should have let everything be known. There shouldn't have been all this secrecy. There shouldn't have been all this change of venue, all this crap that has gone on. We wouldn't be right here. But I believe that was part of the defense's strategy. And I believe a little bit it was the prosecution strategy as well. You know, this case is a cluster. And it's gotten to that point where you don't really know who's pulling the strings anymore. Her other case had only been charged with half of his capital crimes. I don't know if they're waiting to file charges or just letting it go since he is up for the death penalty. Who's the prosecuting attorney in that case? PKC. We get the fact that we want a fair trial, we want a meaningful defense, we want him to have everything he needs so that there's no question after the trial whether he was able to be given certain things. But by this point, I believe that the defense had done nothing but plant seeds the whole way. It's almost like, I know I'm incapable of defending you. We're going to hope for the best that we find something that the state has messed up on, or that somebody leaked something, or somebody did this. And I'm going to put these in the motion, because if it's not on paper, it didn't happen. So that's what you're taught in all this court process is and everything you do with documentation. If it's not on paper, it didn't happen. So this is just creating a paper trail. Mr. Koberger is also entitled to an individualized sentencing determination, a constitutional right that is uniquely reserved for defendants facing the death penalty. And I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Whether it said Mr. 12 Gauge is entitled to an individual, or whether it was somebody else, Mr. Texas Ranger, whatever, whoever, we are all entitled to that because we are citizens of the United States. I'm not against that. I'm against her behavior as a defense attorney. I have an issue with her. I have an issue with that. And I've always had an issue with that. The fact that the man couldn't even stand up and say he was guilty or innocent from the very beginning has rubbed me the wrong way. It seems like he has played mind games from the very beginning. And that has probably been his whole MO. If I act like I'm incapable and I throw this out there and I throw that out there, well, I'm putting stuff out there that has never been put out there before. Let me see what sticks and what doesn't. Because after all, I have the right to do that. I am the defendant. So whatever defense course I want to take, let's see what works and let's see what doesn't. Because the prosecution is seeking to execute him, Mr. Koberger also has additional constitutional rights in his proceeding. The Eighth Amendment required that a capital sentencing proceeding permit individualized consideration of the defendant and the circumstances of the offense. Holding that consideration of the character of the defendant is a constitutionally indispensable part of the process of inflicting the penalty of death. Holding that the state's mandatory death sentencing statute was unconstitutional because it did not permit the sentence to make individualized determinations or assess degrees of culpability. So, we're back to the individualized aggressors, okay? You remember that hearing where we were talking about the individualized aggressors? Which ones met death penalty worthy and which one didn't? Well, when we did that one, when they had that hearing and they were going over that, and the judge felt that he met the aggressors to deem him eligible for the death penalty, here it comes up again, where it says they're trying to see if at one point it will be unconstitutional because it did not permit the sentencer to make individualized determinations or assess degrees of culpability. So it's basically saying, well, how was it possible that this individual is culpable for this crime? How is it possible? It's almost like asking you, like you throw a rock and you break my window, and the rock is in here laying next to me. The window is broken. I get you arrested. They bring you in here and they show you the rock, and you still say, well, that's not enough evidence. You can't prove that was me. Is there my fingerprints on that rock? I said, well, it went through that window right there. Well, how can you prove that I was even in the yard? How can you prove that I'm the one that threw the rock? Could have been anybody out there at any time. Did you see me throw that rock? Do you get what I'm talking about? That's how it works. That is the most simplified way that I can explain how all this stuff works. It's basically for every piece of evidence, there is a question that intertwines it where you have to say, okay, now I got to prove in my story how I was certain that I knew it was him. Okay, there's a footprint in the yard that matches your shoes. Okay. How many people own these shoes? Do you get what I'm saying? And it goes on and on and on and on. It's really an exhausting process. And that's what these papers or the document that we're reading right now are basically breakdowns of what I just did with that scenario. We got to make sure that he's not deprived of the due process and Eighth Amendment right to individual sentencing where the appellate court failed to consider all mitigating evidence. As the Supreme Court noted, we insist on individualized consideration as a constitutional requirement in imposing the death sentence, which means that we must focus on relevant facets of the character and record of the individual offender. If they weren't going for the death penalty and they were just in the back of their mind saying, well, we're going to offer you life without parole, this thing would have done flown through there. There wouldn't have been all this drama. How she she would have probably been pushing for it. Take the plea, Brian. That's the best they're willing to do. Take the plea. Yeah, that's why we have so many cameras everywhere. As far as I'm concerned, the DNA puts him in the house. Well, I mean, you still have people asking, well, how are you sure that was his DNA? And there's multiple ways that DNA could have gotten in the house. Okay. The U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly emphasized that in a capital case, a jury must be given the opportunity to consider all evidence that may weigh against the death sentence for any particular offender. This evidence includes anything at all from the defendant's life history and cannot be limited. That a sentencer may not be precluded from considering as mitigating factor any aspect of the defendant's character or record of any of the circumstances of any offense and the defendant proffers as a basis for a sentence less than death. Reversing death sentence becomes statute precluded consideration of facts and circumstances proffered in mitigating circumstances. So basically, all these cases right here, and I'm not going to read all 40 something pages. Um, it seems like this is just part of the dress rehearsal. It really does. Last bit, last ditch effort for her to try to, okay, I asked you in court, you shot me down. Now I'm going to put in a document to see if you're still going to shoot me down. So this says it is well established that life history records that must be collected include, but are not limited to, all records that may be in existence and which bear any of the following subjects. And we've seen this one already: medical history, complete prenatal, pediatric, adult health information, exposure to harm substances, substance abuse, mental health, history of maltreatment and neglect, trauma history, educational, employment, military, multi generational family history, genetic disorders, vulnerabilities, prior adult and juvenile correctional experience, poor adult and juvenile, religious, gender, sexual orientation, ethnic, racial, cultural, and community influences, socioeconomic, historical, and political factors. So it just keeps going on and on. I believe that this is basically just the last effort of the defense to say, I'm going to throw all this in there. And then we're going to talk about the Dateline, you know? Why not? Let's add that in there too. You know? See, that's a lot of paperwork. A lot. I believe that she did that all for nil, though. I really do. Because this judge does not seem like the judge that, he seems like whatever I say is what I mean. If he said, I really don't think we're going to give you that amount of time, I would take it to the bank that that's what he would mean. Either way, he left it or not, he didn't count on leaving the DNA. Okay? I'm not arguing with you. I'm just asking questions. I think he felt confident he cleaned it perfectly. Yeah. Don't y'all believe that this judge is the kind of judge that you don't play with? One of those judges that he says, we're going to court in August. You're saying, but Judge, I really need more time. How about September? No, I think August is more appropriate for me. So why don't you do what you need to do? There's 24 hours in a day, 7 days in the week. Why don't you get busy and bust your hump? Which basically that's what he said. Get on it. You need to step up your game. And if you're not comfortable with not trusting people and you're the one that has to be in charge of what you got to do, I mean, that's a personal choice. That's a personal choice. So later on, you can't say, well, you know what? The judge wouldn't give me plenty of time, so I couldn't do what I needed to do. And that led me to not being able to represent my client effectively. Well, you can't blame the judge. It's your responsibility to get this evidence categorized, investigated, instead of listening to this person, that person about potentially having an alternative suspect. If you know, you know, right? How many of you know about that? How many of you know about that life? That double meat cheeseburger, boy, it put me under tonight. I think smiling and batting the eyelashes are just going to piss Hitler off. I believe so too. I mean, because She got away with that for almost a year. I love when pro burgers say, but the sheath is a movable object. Yes, dummies. It was moved during the crime scene. How about this one? How about this one? I'll take a number 512 mayo with mustard. Don't you? How about this one? When they say, well, how can you prove that knife sheath wasn't already there? It's just the same thing as what I said about the rock thrown through the window. It's like for everything you have evidence on, there's somebody willing to question it by adding one more layer to whatever it is that you're trying to find out. It's like, well, you can't prove that was my rock or that rock was in my hand. You didn't see me throw it. Okay, let's dust. Oh, there's fingerprints. Let me take your fingerprint. Oh, these fingerprints match. Well, you still can't prove that I was standing there and threw that rock through your window. Oh, we're going to go that route. I had a burger with mustard and mayo and onions. Heaven. Yeah, it was kind of a hamburger night tonight. Nothing says double meat like a rainy day. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, I was craving a Whataburger. And like I said, if you know, you know. You either love it or you don't. I don't know what kind of hamburger places y'all have. I'm not a big fan of Whataburger, but like I said, in the pinch on a rainy night, it comes through, you know. So I don't believe that the sheath was already there. I don't. I believe he brought it in. He dropped it through the struggle. It went under the leg, under the comforter. I wish, I really wish in the beginning that things would have been different with the secrecy of the case. Instead of stock photos, they should have shown us the Ridge Road camera photo they had. They should have shown the front of the vehicle. That would have taken the whole, Elantra in Eugene, Oregon out of the mix. That would have taken all that stuff out of the mix. That would have taken all that conspiracy out of the mix. But they didn't, you know? But they didn't. And I believe that, they have created this monster. I think some people could see a video of the crime taking place and still find reasons he couldn't have done it. Exactly. You could see a video of him walking in the place and walking to his car and driving off, and they'd still say, well, no, that can't be Brian. And won't be able to explain or defend the sheaf evidence. I had a fried crawfish salad today, and it was so good. That does sound good, bro. Man, you eat good. I need to come visit you for real. But I mean, at this point, I'm not getting on here and saying guilty or innocent. I'm really not. I'm way beyond all that craziness. Because you know what? The jury's going to be the jury. I hope that they sequester the jury once they get them. That way, no more leaks or no more other stuff, and they ungag the damn thing, and we go on with life. I really do. I hope that's the avenue that we go. I believe that we have reached the point where the gag order is not applicable for anything other than just to create drama. I've said repeatedly that if someone was setting Koberger out, they did a terrible job. Only one speck of DNA. Wouldn't you think a little more DNA would have made more sense? Yeah. And like somebody had said at one point, they said, if they were going to set him up, why not take some of his blood and smear it, or some of the victim's blood and smear it on his vehicle? Go and smear it on his apartment door. Just take a little bit of the victim in a Q-tip, go smear it on his apartment door. Where only you know where that is. So, he leaves. You go after he leaves, go smear it on the door, and then say, look what we found. Look what we found. We got our perpetrator. I mean, it's silly. It's silly to think of the way that people try to defend this case. Very good point. A speck of DNA sure sounds like BK tried to clean his knife sheath before leaving the apartment, but missed the spot. Yesterday I made lemon blueberry surprise. That sounds delicious. Wonder what the surprise was. But honestly, wouldn't you? I mean, if you're really gonna set somebody up, you're not gonna do it on a knife sheath. Like that just doesn't make any sense. Why not do it at an apartment where you could say, well, there's no reason this victim blood should be at your apartment. None. You know. Oh, now you're trying to bribe me. Now you're trying to bribe me. Good try. Good try. Good try, Leslie. I love your spirit. You still haven't given up. You're a stubborn one for sure. I like that. But I hope the man gets a fair trial. I've always wanted him to get a fair trial, and I believe you in the chat have always wanted that fair trial. To assume that just because we believe that there's evidence and there's, all this stuff against the man that police have said, we found this, doesn't mean that we believe that instantly somebody is guilty. It means that, we believe that the evidence works. And like I said earlier in a little short that I posted, mens rea, if you don't know what that is the mental aspect of a criminal mind. You have this type of mindset that is more culpable to create a crime like this, and the evidence that you put into it, it either fits or it exonerates. It makes suspect go away because they don't fit that mindset, they don't fit that culpability. So it's all about mindset. I need to put these away to make these smaller. 12 gauge. I found out something today about the case, but it's not who did it, it's how far this goes. Well, and I have a receipt. No, I don't feel like going down that hole. If you notice, I'm a bigger guy, and there's only so many rabbit holes I can really fit down. So that's one of the reasons it has to be a mighty big manhole in order for me to get down that hole. But honestly, I love your effort, Leslie. I really do. I do want to ask you guys in the chat because we are going to have a trial. I'm going to ask you this right now because I want to save all the drama of the summer because I have a very busy summer scheduled. Let me ask you this question. If after you hear all the evidence, after the surviving roommates have testified, after all this stuff, the jury deliberates and they find him guilty of 4 counts of murder and 1 count of burglary, will you believe it? Would that be enough for you? Will you be able to say, okay, that's it? Can y'all answer that for me? Because I really want to know. It's not about guilty. Or if they find it the other way. Okay, without a reasonable doubt, we find the defendant innocent. Will you be able to be okay with that? Would you be able to put it to bed? Would you be able to say, okay, I'm done talking about it. Let's move on. Let's move on to something else. You get what I'm saying? Will you be able to say, let's move on? Let's I don't want to go through the whole appellate process. If he's guilty, I don't want to sit through all that court stuff. Let's just move on. Will you be able to stop listening, stop wondering? Will your mind be at peace at that point? Leslie says, I don't think so. Why not, Leslie? I'm open to being wrong. I'm thinking he is guilty. If he didn't do it, I don't want him convicted. Exactly. The scary thing is that would mean the real killer is still out there, and I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that wholeheartedly. Mickey says yes. Um, Done. Move on. Leslie says no. She wouldn't be able to move on. Can you explain why not? Because that's interesting, Leslie. I mean, if they find him innocent, you wouldn't be able to move on. Drop it. Or if they find him guilty, you wouldn't be able to say, okay, I watched the whole trial. I got all the evidence from both sides. I heard all the arguments. I can move on. I can leave this alone. I did. I thought he was, but no, I don't. I think this has a girl touch. He said no. Well, Leslie, I said that in the beginning. I really did. But I don't believe there was a female involved in this. A female didn't do this. Do you know how much pressure it takes to plunge a knife through not only muscle, flesh, bones? It takes a lot of pressure, a lot of strength. If the evidence doesn't show him guilty, I am good. If he gets off due to technicality, I am furious. Okay. I know you did. Who punched Kaylee? Not a girl. Okay. And that's fine, Leslie. I mean, I know that you watch a lot of different creators. So it's easy to hear something. I was there at the very beginning, so I'm not going to fault you for any of this. I'm really not. I watched a lot of creators very early on, and it seemed like I would go to one, and they'd be on one side and be like, okay, that sounds right. Then I'd jump over to another one, and they'd be like on the other way, and I'd be like, no, there's no way. Okay, that other one sounded all right, but let me go with this one. That was all over the place. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I just need to make me a channel. I just need to make me a channel so that I can just stay in one position because it's going to drive me crazy if I don't. Well, the proof hasn't been shown, Leslie. We haven't gone to trial. All this stuff that we've been told for all creative purposes, this could be evidence, but it could also not be the evidence that's going to be used in trial. You get what I mean by that, Leslie? It could be incriminating by viewing it, like the search history, the buying the knife sheath, all that stuff. It could be incriminating. But there could be also other stuff that is either biological or forensic based that shows even more of a connection that we haven't been told of. That's what I'm saying. If that gag order wouldn't have been there, we'd know everything. And there'd be none of this. Nobody's saying he's guilty. Nobody is saying he's guilty or innocent. I'm with, PKC. If it's a technicality, that's crap because we've spent so much of this time wanting the truth. and hearing about a fair trial and all this other stuff, and you get off by technicality, that means that you weren't interested in justice. You were interested in just making sure that you threw a wrench in there so that there was no way of really finding out the truth. Hey, Michelle, thank you for being here. Does that make sense to you guys? Because, I know there's people that get on here and they go after this, they go after that. That's fine. That's fine. But honestly, Leslie, if I have a suggestion, and I do, I would suggest that you wait until the trial and then make your mind up. Because every day there's somebody coming out with something different that's already been talked about, but they're just tweaking it just a little more to make it sound a little more devious. Like how long did we go, and no shade at the creator, but how long did we go with the tunnels and the reflections and the flushing the drug down the toilet and all that stuff that we've heard about? It made a good story. The cartel, the gangs, and snitches, and this and that and the other. It makes for a good story, like a good book. But we're not writing a book. We're not reading a book. We're looking at somebody's life that got taken. 4 people's lives who got taken. And that's the terrible part of it. It's not a book. It's not a game. It's not solve it if you can. It is someone's life that got taken 2 years ago. 4 of them. Does it matter what Dylan was thinking while she was there laying in the bed? Does it matter really what she did running downstairs, or whether she saw her, whether she thought she was alive, whether she thought she was dead? The fact of the matter is she didn't meet the police's criteria to be arrested as a possible suspect. If she was, we might find out that she was interrogated at one point. But up to this point, we have no clue whether that happened. So everybody going against her and Bethany and everybody in between, you can have your beliefs. You really can. That's what makes YouTube so interesting. But you also have to remember these are real people. These are real lives. This is a real town. This is a real community. And to be talking that ill on all the people that live in that town, people you don't even know, if you have any empathy whatsoever, you would understand that if that happened in your town and you were part of that little circle that knew that person that got thrust into the national spotlight, and all of a sudden your name started being called out there for a potential part in it, or knowing something, or having a mischievous past, how would you feel? How would you feel? You know? I'm just saying that, we need to wait until the hearing, the trial. And we need to have some grace on these surviving victims. Because it really doesn't matter whether we agree with their lifestyles, we agree with what they were doing at 1122, whether we think that 1122 was a hub for, debauchery and Sodom and Gomorrah and all this other stuff. You know what? All that doesn't matter. 4 people lost their lives in one time and one night, and it could have been 6. And the fact that you blame the other 2 because the 4 died and they lived, that is just terrible. That is just terrible. And people say, well, had it been 2 dudes, they would have been arrested and thrown under the jail. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Hunter went in that house. His DNA was all over the place, I'm sure. He wasn't arrested. You get what I'm saying? So you have to be a critical thinker. I know you didn't, Leslie. I know where you're talking about as far as a deeper level. I know who you're talking about. Living here, I just can't support corrupt LA and prosecution cartel drug gangs. Some make it sound like a third world country. Exactly. And you're local. You're a local. To talk about some place as if I know this person, this person, this person. I mean, there's some creators you would think lived right down the street from all the people they talk about. Like they know them on a first name basis, just because they've Googled the hell out of their name and found pictures and photographs and all this other stuff. It doesn't really mean that you know who they are, what their personality is. Even Ashlyn Couch has gotten some shade. There's no way that she could have been Maddie's best friend. Kaylee was Maddie's best friend. No, Kaylee was like her sister. There's a difference. Well, they had a falling out, so that means that there must have been something going on there that, you know, they could have met. That's what happened. She was a part of that. No, they fought like sisters. And if you've ever fought with your sister, you understand you don't talk for a little bit, then you make up, and it's all better. 12 gauge, I'm sure some of these girls come kick mine, yours, and Texas, and Rondi, and Sirius, and Jeff, and H butts. I doubt it. I doubt it. Unfortunately, social media has been detrimental to a lot of court cases. People have a hard time with seeing cases should be in court of law and court of public opinion. I agree with that. I have a daughter the same age. It could easily have been her. I deal with or could deal with some of these people. I don't see the corruption and nefarious actions being portrayed. Of course not. Girls these days have a lot of best friends. Of course they do. It doesn't mean that just because one person is closer to you, they went off to college. They were in different sororities. They were experiencing different friendships. You get what I'm saying? So not not everything is just a clue to piece together something that could be nefarious. You know, it's okay that you believe that, Leslie. It really is. I enjoy you being here. I enjoy you being my mod. It's okay that you believe that. You believed a lot of different things most of the way. But I do want to ask you these questions though. If it was a female that possibly did this, or more than one, I don't even know what theory you're going on, but more than one, explain to me how, when, where, and who these persons were. Because if you can answer every one of those questions with a person that is just one person, not why, how, when, where, and who, then I'll listen to your theory. Know why. I don't need to know why you think that. Now, I would say knives and guns usually a male weapon of choice. Women are more subtle. No, I don't want to watch somebody else's video. I'm asking you. I'm asking you that. That's why I asked you. I don't want to see somebody else explaining it to me. Because they have their opinion does not necessarily mean that that's logical. Leslie and Billy girls can definitely be cruel, that's for sure. The ones in junior high. Right. I've had the same two best friends since college. Almost 30 years later, we're all still best friends. Like sisters. Yeah. And I'm sure, Layla, y'all have had some fights, knockdown dragouts, and then you still get back together right at the end of the night, end of the day. Okay, Leslie. Texas says, Michelle, you must have never been to a woman's prison then. It's it's interesting. I mean, we're just gotten to the point. I could see where in the very beginning, the first year and a half, I understood why people were digging so hard. Why they were looking into the Linda Lane, the sound, the pictures, all of that. I really see it. But at this point, we've gotten a lot more stuff that has nothing to do with what people continue to talk about. And all I'm asking is, if this stuff is so relevant, just like the Dateline stuff isn't, don't you think that it would have been under the gag order as well? And you can't tell me that having a YouTuber sitting here talking about these scenarios or these type of theories, if they were on to some kind of evidence that was not shown or known, their YouTube channel wouldn't be still going. It would have been shut down. Because the last thing that people want in this trial is an unfair prejudice. And I agree with that. It should not be unfair. The man does deserve a fair trial, just like we all do. And I've never said he didn't. People assume, based on what I talk about, that I'm one way or the other. They don't even really ever ask me, they just assume. So I'm telling you, this man does deserve a fair trial and he does deserve all this and that. But at the same time, get on with the trial already. Stop stalling. If his attorney can't do it, fire her. Get somebody else in there that can. He should have done that a long time ago. She seemed tired. She seemed wore out. She lost her mother not long ago. She's incapable mentally of being in the here and now, I believe. But that's on him. He's choosing to stick with her. And he might fire her the last week of the damn right before the trial. Who knows? Because he knows what he's doing. He's playing games. And that is part of the MO. That is part of the MO of a potential suspect. Even though Dateline put out some information that may have been hearing, isn't really no different than what we do on social media. It all comes down to theories and speculation. Of course. Of course. It's kind of like when you hear a channel talk about breaking news or breaking information and they play a little portion of the 911 call. Everybody went crazy when we heard that. And then another creator played the whole thing, and we went crazy when we heard that. So, should they have been able to continue doing what they've done since the 911 call if that wasn't public knowledge? I believe that that was the catalyst. I believe that that's what exploded all this because people said, okay, well, the networks are playing the damn 911 call. We got juicier information than that. Let's just show them everything we got. And I believe that that's what Dateline did. Is they said, okay, you might have the 911 call, but we got this. We've been sitting on this for almost 2.5 years. It's time to let the world see what we got. What do y'all think about that? Y'all agree or disagree on that? I think there is, Texas. I think there's one or two. But you know what? To be fair, I mean, I think he's going to ride with her till the end. But mentally, you just lost your mother. You have another death penalty case going on. You got this one. Your mindset cannot be on what it should be. I mean, you know, I've never lost a parent, but I can tell you from those that have told me that they've lost their parent, their mind wasn't right, especially doing two death penalty cases simultaneously. How could you do that? Mourning and grieving your mother, even if you weren't close. You get what I'm saying? I mean, it just, I don't know. It's almost like he's rolling with her, and if I was him, I would have let go a long time ago and been like, look, you need to get somebody in here that is a little more experienced than you, somebody to help you because you keep saying you're overworked. I agree with that. But you get what I'm saying, though. It's like the 911 call came out. All the major media network got a hold of it, and it's time to one up them. Yeah, she is in over her head. He's exercising his rights, and AT has to oblige. She's doing a lot of her thinking, so I think BK will have to work harder. I'm pretty sure. Thank you for being here, Alexi. It's just about thought process, and I'm glad that you are able to see both sides because I've never once have gotten on here and said that he doesn't deserve constitutional rights or anything that, he doesn't deserve due process, all this stuff. I've always said he deserves a fair trial. I've been on board with that since day one. Everybody deserves a fair trial if you've ever been accused of anything. You deserve to be able to clear your name. I just don't agree with the way things have gone regarding the tactics his attorney has used. And you heard me say earlier, I don't believe that the prosecution is above reproach as well. I mean, I believe both sides have played some devious games, and it was more evidence in the other courtroom. It really was. She should have never taken on another case if she can't give our attention to either one. Totally agree. Totally agree with that. You know, you must represent your client to the fullest. If your mindset is not there, you must. What's the difference in him representing himself and Bundy representing himself? You know what I mean? It's like I was really shocked that he got a public defender. I thought this dude is going to want to represent himself. Watch. I really did. I mean, I said that to myself at the very beginning. I thought, what this dude want to represent himself because he thinks he's brilliant, you know? Yeah, where's Cochran dead, I think. And so is that Bailey guy, the dream team. He deserved due process, but competent defense lawyers, not overburdened, allow an outside factor. Exactly. Because it's kind of like saying, hey, you got that deadline, or we got that deadline for that paper to be due in 3 weeks, and we're at week 2.5, and I ask you, hey, are you almost done with that paper? And you tell me, well, you know what, I really need a lot more time. Well, how much of it you got done? Well, I just barely started on it last night. Well, what's been going on that's kept you from doing what I asked you to do? Especially when you know that I'm all about deadline, that I'm not about issuing, you know, extensions or anything like that. That's what I'm saying is like, what type of judge this is. What would make you think that it'd be okay to extend what he's already told you? We want to go to trial no later than August. How you asked for September, he shot you down quick. No, let's kind of go August. I think BK has left AT out to dry. I don't think he's helping her at all. He couldn't even plea. That has always bugged me. Lori Vallow is trying, not very successful. Very true. Let's see. What did I just hit? Hold on a second, guys. She isn't going to back out. I think it's money and notoriety if she can win this. Can you imagine? Yeah. But if she loses it, it's just another loss. She really not going to win unless she gets him off totally, unless he's totally innocent. If she gets him the death penalty or the life without parole, that's not a win. She saved his life, but he's still going to prison, so she really didn't do anything. I mean, people forget she is a public defender. She's not a high powered lawyer like some people believe that she is. She's a public defender, and that's no knock at them. But most public defenders do not win high profile cases. They don't. That's one reason why a lot of people don't go with public defenders. I like this comment. Standing silent, also AT's playbook. Her other client did that also. All he said was absolutely the JJJ, and I took that as he was being a smartass. She's winning her salary and the experience, etc. She's got him this far. Yeah? I would say no more extensions. We will go to court in August to get it going or show me why I shouldn't talk to the bar about your ethics of your job. I mean, to be fair, you're either going to be ready or you're not. If you're not ready, you go with what you got. And if you aren't able to present something that you think was going to be important, well, that's your bad. I mean, you've had the same time frame at the state, the same time frame, and you can't argue that the discovery was not given. You can show that you filed motion after motion after motion, but not one judge has sanctioned the state for lack of presenting motions or the discovery. Neither judge did that. So you can't say, well, we would be ready if the state would have presented the discovery faster. We haven't heard lately it's about the discovery process because there was a deadline. They turned over everything. Now it's not about what they turned over, it's about how it was turned over to them. AT wasted 6 months trying to get BK's indictment thrown. Yeah, she did. No more wasting the court time. I agree with you. AT is riding a fine line when it comes to being ethical. My opinion, not wanting the prosecution to hire an expert to talk to Brian, and she wants to be in the room with him when he's talking, taking questions, and saying, yeah. I mean, it seems like she's taking this too personal for some reason. I mean, I believe that if there would have just been two victims, this would have been high profile, but it wouldn't have been as high profile as become. The fact that it's four, that's what made it this huge. Because there's murders every day. There's a murder happening right now. There's somebody being stalked, somebody being surveyed, somebody being robbed, raped, assaulted, you name it. It's happening right now. What makes those crimes less than this crime? The fact that nobody knows about them. And we really don't know a lot about this one. We know circumstantial stuff. We know state of mind on some aspects, but we really don't know a lot about this crime other than what we've been told. Yeah. And she walked through the house just like they did. Yeah, maybe she's going to write a book. You remember those photos that we saw very early on of her at the house? She was at the front door. She had booties on. She was standing by the fence. She had the same opportunity as the state to walk through the residence, to see the environment, to see all where the murders took place, all the stuff. So she had the same opportunity as the state What does she know about this case that she needs to look through all those video files or whatever? What has she been doing? I wonder what she went and got out of his apartment. Good question. Good question. You get what I'm saying? It's like we're paying you $500,000 to get this project done. And all along the way, you're telling me, well, I might be ready, but I might need a little more time. Well, I really need it done. I really need you to be on point. Well, I don't know if that's going to happen. Well, it better because, we really need this done. So it's crunch time. It's crunch time. And it's time for Ann Taylor to either hire people to help her or just go with what she got. Ann Taylor's trying to delay the trial because she doesn't have the evidence to pursue the alternate perpetrator defense. She wants more time to come up with someone. I can go with that. I can go with that. I just don't know why it's taken so long to name an alternate perpetrator. You get what I'm saying? Like, we've had this much time and we're getting down to the cutthroat. We went past the suppressions, we went past the motions in limine, we went past all that stuff, and it's almost like, well, if we don't get this thrown out, we're gonna say there's an alternate perpetrator. I hope to God they don't say it's the same guy that broke into that house in Pullman that supposedly attacked that girl that, remember that they were talking about that he stood in her doorway, she kicked him in the stomach, he ran out, and he was never caught. I pray to God that that's not going to be our alternative suspect. Brian Koberger had the same amount of lawyers that O.J. Simpson had. How is that possible when they're public defenders? Personally, I think Ann Taylor has a control issue or lack of faith in her team. That's a good observation. Yeah, the neighbor's short dude. Yeah, we knew what you meant. You're fine. So, I mean, if it's not that guy, I don't know who it could be. But she still has to have evidence. She can't have this is why I believe that it's this person. She has to have evidence, whether it be forensic, whether it be camera, video, you know, she has to have evidence to put this person at this location during all these times to be the alternative suspect. You can't just say, well, I think little Johnny down there did it because, he was acting crazy after the murders and he does have bushy eyebrows and he's about the same size as the perpetrator would describe. But, you know, he was bragging about a knife, blah, blah, blah. You can't just go with that. That's why the judge was saying, you need to give me some more proof. Yeah, that's what I heard too, that he was shorter. But I mean, stranger things have happened. You get what I'm saying? I mean, stranger things have happened. At this point, I don't put anything past them. I really don't. And at the same time, I don't blame them either. I don't. She's trying to do her job. He's allowing it. He's all for it. So I just hope that, we get to the honesty and the truth part of the whole thing eventually. Yeah. Way to ruin someone's life just to try to save your clients. That sounds like burden shifting, expecting the defense to prove alternate suspect. Hey, Firefly. I mean, I just don't understand what would compel them to even say, well, we got an alternate suspect. I hope she doesn't bring Kobaka into it. That guy has suffered enough in a lifetime, even more after death. I'm with you on that one. 1,000,000%. Defense just needs to provide reasonable doubt. That's it. Maybe BK is telling her to keep looking. It was his job. Perhaps he is looking too. It's her job to do what her client asked. The prosecution perhaps should have given her less but substantial material. I mean, you are really on it. I mean, that's it. And that's what I believe she's been trying to do, is just plant that seed of doubt. If you can plant that seed of doubt and you can get one juror to go along with your narrative, then, she's done her job. She's done her job. But she can't just half ass it, so to speak. It seems like there's been documents that the court has asked for that they have not gone above and beyond, that they've had to kick them back because they've been too long, or they haven't been long enough, or they haven't gotten enough information in them, that the court has had to ask for more information, more directive as far as what they were meaning. And you would believe, as professionals, that you would have all this information done correctly the first time, that you wouldn't have your paperwork kicked back, that you wouldn't have all this stuff going on. You'd think that, well, my team's going to be able to put it all together and the judge isn't going to kick it back because there's not enough in there. I don't think Kipler is going to allow it. He seemed pretty fed up already. Well, I believe he doesn't have an emotional attachment. He has a law attachment to it. So, based on not trying to be prejudicial or biased, he has a lot to think about. He has a lot to think about on this. And then he had the Dateline crap going on too at the same time. So he might just say, you know what? I said what I said. Yeah. And that wouldn't shock me one bit. I said what I said. You already knew the answer. You wasted the ink. You wasted the paper. Good try. I said what I said. You know? So, let me know what you think about this video if you watch it on replay. I know there's a lot of people that are probably working or even sleeping at this hour. There's people that watch this at all different types of the day and hour. So let me know if you enjoyed the live stream. I tried to actually give people some insight on my thoughts regarding this case, because I know a lot of times I really don't share them. I share more about the documents and stuff like that. But I do want everybody to know that I do and have always wanted this individual and every individual that is sitting in front of a court to have a fair trial, and that their life, their rights not be infringed on. But does it always happen? Is it always 100%? No, it's not. That's why we have the appellate courts, just in case things slip through the court. What I like, it seems to be very victim oriented. I'm not sure that Ann Taylor was very happy about the judge wanting to hold seats for the other two roommates and calling them victims. I don't understand why people don't believe they're victims. I'm missing the super regionals for this. I'm super dedicated. Yes, you are. Well, we're glad you're here, Firefly. We're glad you're here. I noticed that you guys aren't in blue. Or are you still in blue on YouTube? It doesn't show your wrenches on this. Okay, I see the wrenches now. You're just not in blue anymore. Everybody's in white. unless you're a member and then you're in green like Mountain Mama, right? Saying they absolutely are victims, just in another way. I've always felt that way, Kelly. I really have. I've always felt that they were victimized by that night. I mean, how could you not be a victim based on waking up and your four friends or roommates are murdered? That would traumatize anyone. That's fine, Layla. I hope you enjoy it. So many saying she's going to destroy them. I don't think BT or Hitler is going to allow her to go too far. I don't think so either. Blue and wrench. Okay. Because I just noticed that. I was like, where's the wrenches? I don't want people to say, well, you took my wrench away. No, it's still there. There it is. These girls forever will be changed. And that is the comment of the night for sure. That would be a horrible look for the defense if they were to go after these two roommates any way, shape, or form. That is so true. I agree with you, Firefly. I really do. I mean, and it's terrible to think that so many people talk so harshly about them. After all, they're probably the people that talk about them the harshest are old enough to be their grandfathers. And to perverse it, as a lot have on these platforms, I think it's despicable. Despicable. Because I've heard a lot of older men my age sit here and make derogatory comments about how they look, how their bodies are shaped, what they would do, who's the prettiest, who's the ugliest, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff. What that have to do with you talking about the case? Did you guys catch the snark and the giggling between Ann Taylor and the other lawyer when the prosecution brought up the model and not calling it a dollhouse? It was so unprofessional. Yeah. Yes, I've heard it. It's awful. So you will never hear that on this channel. You know, it's so, so despicable. The survivals and family being dragged through the mud. Yeah. And even on Facebook, I've seen a lot of people doing some horrible things to these people on Facebook as well. Act like children, Tommy Dude. Okay. I can't tolerate those that go after those girls and the victim family. So disgusting. It really is. You know, to be a grown ass man talking about how Dylan had this or that, it just like she's 21 years old. You know, they're young. As an older female, I'm not sure how I would handle it. I imagine I'd be wearing a white jacket. Yeah, I probably would too. I probably would. I've been arguing with them on their 12. Good for you. The fact of the matter is a lot of us have lived through a lot of traumatic events in our lives, and we've probably been ridiculed just the same. We all have our own cross to bear, and those people that talk about these individuals like they do, I'm not their judge, jury, or executioner, but I can call it out as I see it. But that doesn't mean that it's going to stop, you know? That doesn't mean it's going to stop. And many people do it for shock value. It's like, how can I shock the audience? But to say what you say and just like think that you should be saying out of earshots of certain people, or you shouldn't be saying it at all. Yeah. And some of these men have daughters of their own or granddaughters that they claim to love, but they objectify these females. So it makes you wonder, is that their mentality of all females? Young, old, in between. But That's neither here nor there. I really appreciate that you guys chose to spend your evening with 12 Gauge and the chat. 12 Gauge Investigative will try to give you the best of updated information, even if it is a couple days late. I hope y'all keep coming back. And if you watch this on replay, let me know in the comments what you really think of some of the stuff that we talked about. And y'all have a beautiful night. Stay safe out there. Maestro, why don't you cue that music?